Hello guys, welcome back. Today we're diving into episode 3 of the Dinosaurs on Netflix. And this one is packed. It's faster paced and covers some truly monumental moments in the history of life on Earth. We're jumping across different time periods and locations, so there's a lot to unpack. Let's not waste any time and get straight into some of the most interesting things this episode has to offer. First, my favorite part of the episode, Spinosaurus. It's shown exhibiting some fascinating behavior, catching a small fish and using it as bait to lure larger prey. There's been ongoing debates about how aquatic Spinosaurus really was, but recent research suggests it may have hunted more like a heron, rather than actively chasing prey underwater. The show fully embraces this idea. Some modern birds, like the green heron, have been observed using bait, like bread, to attract fish. Seeing Spinosaurus portrayed with similar behavior is a really creative interpretation of this giant piscivore. The episode also touches on extremely high sea levels of Cretaceous, adding another layer of environmental context to everything we're seeing here. Next, we get to the appearance and spread of flowering plants, the monumental moment I mentioned earlier. The show depicts a lone flower blooming in an ancient forest around 113 million years ago, which is a nice visual presentation for a much deeper story. While we can't pinpoint exactly when flowering plants first evolved, scientists estimate their origin to be roughly between 140 and 250 million years ago, and they likely look quite different from most modern flowers. The earliest flower was probably bisexual, radially symmetrical, and relatively large and complex, with many unfused parts arranged in multiple layers, organized in repeated whorls. It likely combined traits in a way no modern flower does, suggesting that all flowers today are derived from this more elaborate ancestral form. Reconstruction superficially resembles something like modern magnolias, which is likely where the show drew its inspiration, a detail I really appreciated. Another nice touch is the depiction of a beetle visiting the flower. This is actually accurate, as beetles were among the earliest pollinators, long before butterflies and modern bees evolved. By about 1 to 120 million years ago, early flowering plants had already begun to diversify. These early flowers were not yet dominant, existing within still developing ecosystems before the eventual explosive radiation. In a similar setting, the show depicts a stegosaur Yanbeilong struggling to feed on these newer plants, implying that some dinosaurs couldn't adapt to the changing vegetation. We don't fully understand exactly when or why stegosaurs went extinct, but environmental change is considered a likely factor, so the show's interpretation isn't far off. A large portion of the episode focuses on life in the early Cretaceous of Northeast Asia, specifically the Jehol Biota. In one winter scene, Yutyrannus is depicted with a lighter silver coat of feathers with gray striping, blending seamlessly into the snowy forest. It's an intriguing artistic choice, because this kind of camouflage would be mostly effective in the winter, raising question of whether Yutyrannus might have molted into seasonal plumage, similar to some modern birds. We may never know for sure, but it's a fun and thought-provoking possibility. We also see migrating sauropods, referring to the show as Dongbei Titan. This animal is a smaller titanosaur form. The show seems to reuse a Mamenchisaurus model. While Dongbei Titan likely had a long neck, its exact relationships are still uncertain, and they may have had a proportionally larger head than what's shown here. That said, the environment of the Yixian Formation, where Yutyrannus lived, likely experienced cold, snowy winters due to its higher elevation. I actually made a separate video going into detail about this, so check that out if you're interested. I'll link it in the description. Back to migration. Could difficult winters have driven dinosaurs to move? Possibly. Some modern birds perform vertical migration, moving from high elevations to lower ones, where food is more available. It makes you wonder if dinosaurs might have done something similar. Then we have the Longipteryx, also part of the Jehol Biota, from a later time in history. There is no sexual dimorphism shown here, and while it's depicted with a short tail, tail feathers aren't well preserved, so that detail is uncertain. What is really well done is the behavior. Smaller birds mobbing much larger predators to defend their nests is something we see today, and it's great to see it included here. These birds are shown as surprisingly aggressive, even escorting a gray draco far from their nesting site. If you've been dive-bombed by birds, then you know how intense that can be. One odd omission though, is that they aren't shown brooding or burrowing their eggs. There's also a Pyropleides mating call sequence. Fossil evidence suggests some ankylosaurs might have been able to produce a variety of sounds, including chirps, bellows, and melodic calls, like some modern birds. So this behavior feels very reasonable. The scene itself is played for humor, showing the male being clumsy during mating. The episode ends with a striking scene of dinosaurs active during the polar nights of Antarctica, including sauropods, ankylosaurs, and possibly some kind of megaraptor, reinforcing the idea that dinosaurs dominated every continent on Earth by that point. Given Antarctica's long-standing connections to South America and Africa since the Triassic, it's very likely that dinosaurs had been thriving there since the early days of their evolution. So to sum it up, this episode is packed with a wide range of species and some truly fascinating behaviors, some of which are rarely if ever depicted in dinosaur documentaries, like Spinosaurus using bait to fish. Every segment is well executed, especially the behavior aspects, and I enjoyed every bit of it without any real complaints. This is easily my favorite episode so far, showcasing the incredible biodiversity of the Cretaceous at its peak. I'm really looking forward to the final episode, and hope it wraps up the series in a satisfying way. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.